Welcome. Today we're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating society, the Dominican Republic. We're aiming to get a handle on the identity, the culture, and the incredible transformation of the 21st century Dominican. We've pulled together insights from anthropology, sociology, economics, quite a range.
And our goal isn't to pin down some static definition.
Hmm.
I think the sources really point towards a collective profile that's constantly evolving, always transforming. There's this phrase one researcher used that stuck with me, an inexhaustible capacity to be reborn. It really captures something essential, this identity shaped by overcoming things.
Yeah, that resonates. And what jumped out at me right away from the material were these paradoxes you find everywhere in the Dominican psyche. You have this intense, vibrant optimism, that classic Caribbean joy, right? But it lives side by side with a kind of deep historical anxiety.
Exactly. And anxiety often rooted in, let's say, institutional weakness or bureaucratic hurdles. It's that tension.
Between the personal strength and the system.
Precisely. Individuals show incredible resilience, this knack for problem solving. But they're constantly navigating shaky ground institutionally. And then there's the economic picture, this incredibly fast shift. I mean, going from mostly rural, agricultural,
Right, sugarcane fields.
to suddenly being highly urban, digitally plugged in, driven by services. It's almost dizzying.
So, okay, to understand how the society juggles all this, we have to go back to the foundations, you could say. Let's talk about that foundational mix. The sources emphasize an identity forged from three main roots, yeah? And these seem to color everything.
Absolutely. You can't really grasp the modern Dominican without first looking at this triple heritage that formed the identidad criolla. And what's really interesting here is that these roots didn't just clash and vanish. They merged, they adapted, they created something, well, new and incredibly resilient.
Okay, so let's break them down. First up, the Taíno legacy. The island's original inhabitants. The sources highlight their connection to the land, to community. And it's not just history, right? It's still present.
Oh, definitely. It's alive in the language people use every single day. Think about words like hamaca,
Hamak.
right? Or yuca for cassava, bate for that communal yard or space. These aren't just words. They're Taino survivals carrying that original spirit of connection to nature, to community life, centuries later.
Okay, so that's the base layer. Then comes the African root.
Yeah.
This seems huge, arguably the biggest influence on the national character and that ability to endure.
I'd say so. It brings this incredible spiritual vitality, this spirit of resistance, and of course the rhythm. You feel it everywhere. The African inheritance provided, the cultural tools, physical, spiritual, to turn pain into art, into hope.
You see it in how people move, how they speak.
Exactly. The body language, the cadence. And it's the absolute driving force behind the music meringue pata. It's like a cultural refusal to be broken by suffering.
And the third piece, the Spanish root.
This brought the sort of institutional framework. The language, Spanish, of course, early legal structures, and Catholicism as the official religion.
And the fusion of these, especially the spiritual side, created something unique.
Very much so. This leads to what the researchers call syncretismo religioso, a religious synthesis. When we talk about Catholic tradition being adapted, it really means it got woven together with African and indigenous beliefs and practices. The result is this mestiza spirituality. As one source puts it, you have a situation where the European Christ coexists seamlessly with African spirits and indigenous deities. The divine isn't rigid, it's adaptable.
That seamless mixing feels key. It wasn't about losing identity, but creating a kind of cultural flexibility.
That's a great way to put it. It equipped the population with this ability to adapt to huge pressures without losing their core essence.
And does that flexibility link to another core trait the research highlights, the joy, the humor?
Directly. This Dominican joy and humor, it's crucial to understand it not as naive or superficial happiness. The research frames it as a really sophisticated psychological strategy, a form of resistance.
I found that fascinating. Humor as a shield.
Yes, a shield against the daily grind, the instability, the bureaucracy, the insecurity. Laughter isn't about ignoring reality. It's often a way to critique it, to comment on it, without letting it crush your spirit.
So it's a way of maintaining dignity.
Exactly. And it builds community, releases tension, reaffirms that we're in this together feeling. It's vital.
Okay, but let's talk about how this adaptive spirit, this constant need to find a way, plays out socially. This brings us to El Tigraje, right? Tell us about the tigre.
The tiger,
Yeah.
literally tiger. This figure is kind of the embodiment of the astute, skilled individual. They represent that Practical intelligence, the ability to solve problems when there are no official resources, no support. It's the ultimate survival skill. It's often summed up in that phrase, buscarse la vuelta,
Which means?
to find a way around, to figure it out, essentially to make something happen, often against the odds, through sheer ingenuity.
Okay, on one level, that sounds incredibly resourceful, almost heroic, maybe,
Yeah.
especially when systems often let people down, the underdog figuring it out.
And in many ways, it is. It's ingenuity born from necessity, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, and this is the central paradox again, the source material immediately points to the ethical tension here.
Right, there's a potential dark side to this ingenuity.
Yes. The negative flip side is called viveza criolla. You could translate it as Criollo craftiness or even
Yep.
just trickery. It's the tendency to use that same cleverness purely for personal gain, to find the atajo, the shortcut, even if it means bending rules or taking advantage of others or the collective good.
So small-scale corruption, maybe, cutting corners.
It can feed into a tolerance for that, yes. The line between resourcefully solving a problem and sort of gaming the system can get very blurry.
Which means relying too much on the tiger mentality, while essential for individual survival, could actually hold back the development of stronger, fairer institutions, because everyone's looking for their own angle instead of fixing the main road, so to speak.
That's precisely the challenge for the 21st century. The research suggests the goal must be to transform astuteness into virtue and not into trickery. To channel that incredible ingenuity towards the common good, not just personal advantage. To move past the cynicism that says only the smart ones who bend the rules get ahead.
And this ethical tightrope seems even more relevant when you look at the speed of change the country's undergone recently. The whole context has shifted.
Oh, dramatically.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the demographic shift alone. Back in 1960, the Dominican Republic was overwhelmingly rural, maybe 70% living outside cities.
And now?
It's completely flipped. Over 83% urban today. People concentrated in Santo Domingo, Santiago, other centers.
And the economy changed just as fast, moving away from agriculture, the whole era of sugarcane dominance.
Yeah, the 20th century was about the cane fields. Now it's a service economy. Tourism, commerce, call centers. That phrase, from the cane to the call center, really sums up that rapid transition.
But growth hasn't solved everything. The dynamism is their average growth around 5% is impressive for the region.
It is. But huge challenges persist. We can't overlook that over 30% of the population still lives in poverty. Inequality is a major issue.
Which explains why that tiger spirit, that need to hustle, is still so prevalent.
Absolutely. Because of that inequality, the informal economy is massive. Over 55% of people working are in the informal sector. So survival still often depends on el rebusque, that daily hustle, patching together an income. It's a high-growth economy, but with this huge informal engine running constantly underneath.
And that brings us to another crucial piece of the economic puzzle, remittances.
Ah, yes. The money sent home from Dominicans abroad. It's more than just money. It's an economic and emotional lifeline.
The scale is massive, right?
Critically important. We're talking over $10 billion a year. That money props up countless households, supports the middle and lower classes, and keeps that deep connection alive between the island and the huge Dominican diaspora.
And that global connection feeds into the final big transformation we need to talk about, the rise of the digital citizen, digital consciousness.
This might be one of the most defining features of the modern Dominican. Internet access is high, over 80%. Smartphone penetration is even higher, over 90%. Technology hasn't just connected people. It's fundamentally changing how they see themselves as citizens, how they relate to power, to government.
So it's moving away from the old political culture, the caudillismo, the strongman leader, the clientelism where you traded votes for favors.
Exactly. The digital Dominican seems less willing to accept that old model. They're using technology to demand transparency, accountability in ways that just weren't possible before.
A new public square, essentially.
That's a perfect description. Digital platforms, social media have become that space. Citizens, especially younger ones, aren't just chatting. They're organizing, protesting, holding officials' feet to the fire.
The sources really emphasize the youth here. They're not waiting politely.
No, there's this great line. No esperan que les cedan el poder. Lo construyen. They don't wait for power to be handed down, they build it. They seem to be rejecting that paternalistic approach and using their global awareness, their digital tools, to push for real institutional reform.
Okay, so let's try to pull these threads together. We've got the tribal heritage, the humorous resistance, the Tigre paradox, rapid urbanization, the digital wave. What's the overall picture? How would you summarize the contemporary Dominican identity for someone trying to grasp it?
I think the 21st century Dominican represents this really intricate balance. You have profound resilience, yes, deep hospitality, a faith that sustains. But now, crucially, it's fused with this newly critical, globally connected perspective. Their identity, built on that unique cultural synthesis, really demonstrates how a national character can weather enormous change and not just survive it, but actually leverage new tools, like technology, to demand better governance, more accountability.
It's a powerful story of adaptation and agency. So as we wrap up, what's the final thought or challenge the sources leave us with? Something for our listeners to really chew on.
The core challenge, looking forward, is framed as achieving a kind of soberanía del conocimiento, a sovereignty of knowledge, of critical thinking. It means moving definitively beyond that old culture of expecting political favors and towards demanding a dignity of right, where good governance and citizen rights are expected, not gifts.
So real progress isn't just economic growth figures.
Exactly. The sources suggest sustainable progress, the kind that lifts everyone, will only truly happen when ingenuity and ethics walk together. That's the tightrope. Harnessing that incredible resourcefulness, that tigraje, but ensuring it's guided by strong ethics, serving the whole nation. That's the path forward.